Welcome to our final chapter of our Planning for Your Marketplace webinar. Today we'll be going over analytics and reporting. Let's get to it.
Excellent, thanks. All right, so we're heading into the last one for this video, and it's analytics and reporting. One of my favorite, and again, I just watched that video this morning that you did on the auction site, and I thought it was amazing. And unless you're going to correct me here, I would assume that pretty much everything in that video would not only be applicable to just auction, it would be applicable to a marketplace as well, right? Especially since we're dealing with all the vendors. Yeah, and it was really cool. And I'm going to go back and see if I can take a snippet of that video and just kind of play it for you guys here in this video, and just let it run on the screen so you can just get a quick idea of what we're talking about. But I mean, this video that Chris did and this reporting that he showed was as complex as our weekly sales report here at Clarity that we go through, where we're literally shredding every analytic and where every lead comes in and where it is in the process and what was the source of the lead and, you know, all the traffic. I mean, everything. You know, we've got these great reports in HubSpot and these great business analytics reports that we go through and shred every week, you know, to monitor the business and plan for the business and maintain the pipeline and all that kind of stuff that you would want to on sales. Well, this one does it for an auction site, and you can have this same kind of reporting for a marketplace. Now, you can't report on what you don't know, right? I mean, that's the simplest thing. So when it starts, and I'm going to turn it over here in a minute to you so you can talk about this from a technical aspect, but it's very difficult when you come to me and go, hey, Ron, how are things going? It's very difficult for me to drill down and tell you if I haven't collected any information about all those things, because then at that point it's just anecdotal. Well, I think it's going great, right? I mean, we're making revenue. Well, did you happen to sell one big tractor on the marketplace, and so your revenue spiked this month, so it was up, but you sold a tenth of the normal products that you normally sell? I mean, that's a big difference. Obviously, I used an extreme example to show you that things could be skewed, right? So what do you want to report on? What can you report on? And more importantly, before you can even get to that, and I always start at the end game, right? So I always like to start, what do I want reports on? What would help me? What would, you know, I like to think about it as BI, right? I can make business intelligent decisions if I have information to help me make those decisions, right? If I see a trend going down, I make an adjustment. If I see a trend going up, I make an adjustment. If I see something potentially going stagnant, I might make an adjustment, right? So I start at the end game going, what would I like to report on? Then your vendor can come back and go, in order to produce that report, these are the three pieces of data that we need to have. Two of them you get automatically just by what the people are doing. But this other one, we have to actually start tracking their browsing, because we can't track that for people that haven't logged in unless it's actually in a session cookie that's tracking with them. So we actually have to add the collection of those analytics actually up into the cookie, because that has nothing to do with logins or sales, right? So there might be particular pieces of data that are more difficult to get that you need to make sure to collect that data. It's better to collect too much and not need it than not collect it and then need it when you want to report on it, right? I know I've kind of rambled there, but that's kind of how I go at it when I do this. So why don't you start in on how you attack analytics and reporting?
Well, I think that was great. And I think it should be simple things that you're able to monitor consistently. And there was a really interesting blog and sort of discussion from some of the folks at HubSpot, and really this sort of propagated across other companies that are similar, where they found that, like you said, it's better to have and not need than need and not have as far as data and analytics. But as far as what they were internally auditing and reviewing, they found that if they basically picked a few topics that they were consistently reviewing, this was much more potent for them than having a bunch of data that was sort of overwhelming. Now, you sort of, as a marketplace, you get to deal with the opportunity of dealing with mixed thoughts and different thoughts. The other point that I would share here is that if you consider your vendors and sellers who are listing items within your marketplace, they may have different analytics that they're going to want to look at, and you're going to want to have a baseline for them that you can provide reporting against, and make it so that you can provide extreme value to them. Again, sort of, the baseline for a great marketplace is making it so that there is a ton of traffic, of credible buyers that are coming to your marketplace. And in order to really establish that, you really have to have amazing vendors and really strong relationships with those vendors and sellers, so that the logistical aspects, the execution is consistent. Just like the example you gave earlier on with, that one step in the process with the carrier, that could just break your relationship with that marketplace. And a lot of folks, they're going to spend more money and they're going to not worry about the extra cost of working with an existing marketplace that they trust and they believe is credible. So you want to consider that with your reporting. So how does this tie back to reporting, you might ask? Well, you want to be able to understand each step in the pipeline and really be able to visualize this funnel and this process and really understand this customer journey going through your marketplace, both from a seller perspective and from a buyer perspective. And so if you're not able to get at the data, and then if you're not able to consistently boil it down so that your team can analyze it and review it consistently, you're not going to be able to take advantage of the analytics and reporting. And this will literally stymie your growth. This goes hand in hand with governance. Sort of on the governance side, it's some of the gamification and some of the sort of bumpers in the bowling alley. That's what a lot of governance does. The analytics and reporting tells you, hey, you need to put more pressure in those bumpers in the bowling alley. I mean, what good does it do if your bumpers in the bowling alley are halfway inflated and the bowling ball still gets stuck in the gutter? It's like you had the intention, but you didn't execute. And their analytics and reporting really need to be able to have this persistent feedback loop that your team is getting, so you can truly understand accurately, what your performance is. And this needs to propagate into your vendor relationships as well. They need to be able to see accurately what their performance is and be able to tune that as they go. Any other thoughts on that on your end, Ron?
Yeah, from that video you did about the vendor performance that was really interesting is that drove a significant amount of the business on the marketplace. For example, when I go to eBay, one of the things that you're always looking for is, are they a power seller, right? And they earned that. That's a gamification badge that they earned by having either a certain number of sales and completing them, or getting a certain rating over a number of sales, which that is part of the governance, but that's what gamification is, right? So one of the things I noticed in your video that we've done for another one of our clients is that they actually had gamification badges for the top 3 vendors, and does that rotate once a month, once a week? How often do we gamify and take that? So the reporting has moved into ranking the vendors and helping the vendors to earn badges, which entice them to sell more and service the customers better to get better ratings, which is exactly what drives the trust that drives it's a full circle, right? You kind of mentioned all that. And so even though we're talking about reporting can help drive sales indirectly through reporting to the vendors, letting them know their success, letting them know what their profit margin's in, letting them know how their performance is going up, letting them potentially know, as Chris has just said, where the air is low in their bumpers. If you let a vendor know and they can make an adjustment and that improves their revenue, well, guess what? They're going to come back and sell more with you and like your site better because you help them become more successful, which in turn, if they're more successful, you're more successful. So analytics reporting, I love that. Everybody thinks that is an afterthought. I actually believe it's part of every business decision we make. And if you give and extend that same type of analytics and reporting to your vendors, it helps them drive their business. And really in a marketplace, the vendors are your business, right? If they're not coming to your site selling stuff, you have nothing on your marketplace to sell. So it's kind of that full circle. Well, any closing thoughts, Chris?
I would just say that, each of these topics are really detailed, and depending on where you're going with your marketplace platform, you absolutely have an option and a resource with the Clarity team to be able to get complimentary, just, specific to your business and your scenario, complimentary discovery, and just suggestions and consultation that truly is, no sales, complimentary. We want to help. And of course, if there's a good fit for us to collaborate together, great. But if not, we'll point you in a direction that, we think based on our experience is going to be best for your marketplace. Certainly, if you found this valuable, we would certainly appreciate if you would smash the like button and hit subscribe. And other than that, we'll look forward to seeing you all in the next video.
All right. Stay tuned, folks. Next video is on scalability and customizations of your marketplace. Bye for now.
Thanks, Ron. Bye for now.
Thanks for watching our final episode of our Marketplace Webinar Chapter Series. Join Chris and Ron in our next webinar where they will be covering scalability and customizations for a marketplace. Thanks for joining us.